Good morning. Why don't you guys stand to your feet? Come on in for the lobby. Sing along with us. This song's called Not Today, all right?
Won't break me, won't scare me no more. Fear must have thought I was famous when it came for my heart. 'Cause I got a song that will never die. I know your love is the reason why. I sing the night into the morning. I sing my fear into your praise. I sing my soul into your presence. Whenever I say your name, Jesus, till the fear me not Did the enemy panic as you took up that cross? Tell me, did the darkness cry mercy as you rolled back that rock? I know your life is a life in mine. I know your love is the reason why. Come on, I'll sing the night into the morning. I'll sing my fear into your praise. I'll sing my soul into your presence. Whenever I say your name, Jesus, till the fear in me not today. Whenever I say your name, Jesus, till the fear in me not today. Now, every Love stood down and crushed the devil's head. Fear is just a liar running out of breath. The fight beneath your feet. I'm standing on Jesus' name. Till the fear me not today. Till the fear me not today. No, not now, not ever again. Jesus, till the fear me not today. Fear me not today. I'll sing the night into the morning. I'll sing my fear into your praise. I'll sing my soul into your presence. Whenever I say your name, Jesus, till the fear me not today. Not I'll sing the night into the morning. I'll sing my fear into your praise. I'll sing my soul into your presence. Whenever I say your name, Jesus, till the fear in me not today.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to Restoration Church. My name is Jeremy Arsenault. I'm the Creative Arts Director here. Just wanted to welcome you guys. Thank you so much for deciding to spend your Sunday morning waking up a little early and spend it with us. Wanted to say, if it's your first time here, on your seats there should have been a little connection card. If you guys just wouldn't mind filling that out with as much information as you feel comfortable. Maybe we just want to know you're here and send you a little letter, send you a nice gift, or actually you can bring it to the Welcome Center and get a gift. We're going to sing this next song called Say the Word. Why don't you guys sing along with us?
Say the word and there is
we seek your direction, God. God, we seek your presence. God, I pray that this morning, as we're singing, that we can just forget about all the distractions outside of life, God. God, I pray, as people are coming in here, maybe they're afraid of a decision they have to make, or afraid of a decision that they've already made, or they have anxiety about something else, or God, if they just woke up and and felt a distraction to pull away from this morning, God, I pray that we can put all that aside and we can focus on you this morning. As we sing this next song, God, I pray that all eyes are on you. They're not looking at us. They're not looking at me. But God, they're focusing in on you. So God, we love you so much. We just want your presence in your direction this morning, God. In Jesus' name, amen. And hey, if you just walked in here and you're thinking, I don't really want your direction. I don't really want your presence. That sounds a little scary. And I just encourage you to take this time. Go ahead, question it. Take this time as we're singing and just be like, Jesus, I don't know if you're real, but if you are, why don't you show me? Show me that you are real. Give me a sign. And man, God's going to give you a peace. He's going to give you joy. And you're going to feel God's presence this morning. And I pray that happens. And man, if I just pray that you go for it. All right, so we're going to sing. I just encourage you to focus your eyes this morning. Focus your thoughts on Jesus and nothing else, just Jesus.
When my heart is weary, when my soul is weak, when it seems I can't traverse the trail before me, I survey the glory of your agony, and I find the will to fight for what's before me. 'Cause you ran the race, enduring for your glory. I fix my eyes on you, the founder and the finisher of our faith. I fix my eyes on you, the solace in your suffering is my strength. As I fight to follow, you're my righteous guide, and you train me to delight in all that's holy. Heal my broken body, cure my crooked stride, throw off every weight and sin that clings so closely. I will run the race, enduring for your glory. I fix my eyes on you, the founder and the finisher of our faith. I fix my eyes
us, God. We thank you for your glory and your love. God, we thank you for the life that you've given us. And God, we thank you for removing the fear of death from us, God. God, I just pray we continue to feel your presence throughout the rest of this service and throughout the rest of this week, God. God, I pray that as we leave, those distractions and those fears don't just pop right back up and we go back about our life in fear and anxiety, God, but I pray that we are focused in on you, God. God, I pray you be with us, God. I pray we be with you. God, and we just pray for a great rest of this service this morning, God. Pray that you help us learn, help us grow. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, hey, why don't you welcome someone to church, and then you can grab a seat.
Good morning. Welcome to Restoration Church. My name is Andrew. I'm the student ministries pastor, and I'm super excited because we are in the middle of our series, Fear Not. So I figured, since we're in the middle of our series, Fear Not, why not start with some statistics? Don't everybody get so excited? So I looked up the biggest fears amongst Americans because I wanted to know what we fear more than anything. And so coming in at number one with 26% of Americans interviewed fearing it is public speaking, which, yeah, I understand. The second one would be coming in at 24% would be heights, followed by at 22% bugs and snakes and other creatures. And then way down at like number 9 with like 7% was actually clowns, which we can actually find another statistic out of this, that 93% of people are liars. Clowns are horrifying. So, since we're in the middle of our series, Fear Not, and it's coming up on Halloween, we have all this. Our sermon today is actually, the scripture we're going to look at from the Bible is actually going to be a ghost story. So I'm excited for that. But we're going to start with another creepy story from my own life about a time I was almost murdered. So join with me on this delightful little adventure we're about to go on. I believe I was about 21 years young, and I was home from college, and I had decided to go spend some time with some friends who I hadn't seen in a while. And when I decided to do this, I hung out with them, and then at the reasonable hour of 3 a.m., I decided to drive home. So my friend didn't live far from me, so it wasn't a big deal, but it was about an hour and a half drive to not an hour and a half, a mile and a half drive to my house. So it wasn't a big deal. It was going to be quick. It was going to be that. And so I didn't expect to really see anyone on the road because I lived in a small town, and I mean like real small town. When I moved to Florida for college, they said, the town you're in is great. It's got such a small town vibe. There was 100,000 people that lived in the town I was in. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. I come from a town of 7,000. That's a real small town vibe. And so I didn't expect to see anybody on the road. But as I'm going, I pull out of my friend's house, and I'm driving, and I get onto the main road that brings me back to my house. A car comes behind me. So I was like, that's weird. People aren't usually out at 3 a.m. But whatever, there's someone behind me. No big deal. So I go, and I begin to turn. So there's about 3 turns I have to take to get to my house. So I get to the first one, and it's a right, and I take the right. And I'm still on a pretty main road, and the person turns with me. I'm like, oh, no big deal, and then it's another left almost immediately. Still kind of main road. You have to take it to get to the interstate. So I'm like, oh, that makes sense. But then there's a left turn that comes to my road. And now my road is a one-way road, and it doesn't really lead anywhere. It just goes like, you would never take my road to get anywhere unless you're going somewhere specifically on that road, because it just leads into more stop signs and stuff. You might as well take one of the main ones that's by my house. And so when I turn down my road, this car turns down the road behind me. And so I'm like kind of getting freaked out now. I'm like, this is weird. I don't know what's going on, but I keep driving and there's a stop sign, and then you get to where my house is and like maybe they'll turn at the stop sign. They don't turn at the stop sign. I get closer and closer to my driveway. They're still following me. I turn up my driveway, and we have a very long driveway. So I drive up it and I stop, and the car turns in behind me and sits at the bottom of the driveway with the lights on. Now nobody gets out. It just sits there. And so I'm in my car panicking. I'm like, oh my God, like, who are these people? Why are they behind me? And I had the only thing that I have that was of any value to me at that time. It was my laptop was sitting next to me. I'm like, I'm about to get killed and they're going to steal my laptop. This is horrible. And so I'm freaking out. I'm waiting for them to pull out, to go somewhere else, realize they went the wrong place, and nothing's happening. And so it's been like 2 minutes. And so I'm a ball of anxiety. I'm freaking out. So I do the only reasonable thing that a 21-year-old man would do when he's about to get jumped, and I called my mother. And so I call my mom, and I'm like telling her something. I'm like, Mom, there's someone in the driveway behind me. I don't know who they are. Do I call the police? And so I'm like talking really fast. I'm freaking out, and she's trying to get a word in. And finally she's like, Andrew, it's your brother. He's getting dropped off by his girlfriend. Instantly, the whole situation changed. And we'll come back to the rest of my story, but we're going to jump into the scripture. So we're going to be in Matthew chapter 14, verse 22. And if you don't have a Bible that's in a modern translation, we would be happy to give you one out at our Welcome Center. We'll give you one for free so that you can begin to read and investigate these things for yourself. But in chapter 14 of Matthew, verse 22, it goes like this. Immediately after this, Jesus insisted that his disciples get back in the boat and cross to the other side of the lake while he sent the people home. After sending them home, he went up the hills by himself to pray. Night fell, and he was there alone. Meanwhile, the disciples were in trouble far away from land, and a strong wind had risen, and they were fighting heavy waves. About 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came down toward them, walking on the water. When the disciples saw him walking on the water, they were terrified. In their fear, they cried out, "It's a ghost." So here's our ghost story for today. But Jesus spoke to them at once, saying, "Don't be afraid," or "Fear not." He said, "Take courage, I am here." Then Peter called out to him, saying, "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come out walking on the water." "Yes, come," Jesus said. So Peter went over the side of the boat and walked toward Jesus. I always had a hard time with this because I was like, if it is a ghost, what makes you think the ghost's not going to lie to you? Like, ghosts are not on my top list of respectable people. Like, they're there for some reason. Like, don't they want to make more ghosts? He's probably trying to kill you. But I guess Peter just has more faith than me. Peter went over the side of the boat and walked in the water toward Jesus. But when he saw the strong wind and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. "Save me, Lord," he shouted. Jesus immediately reached out and grabbed him. "You have so little faith," Jesus said. "Why did you doubt me?" Then he climbed back into the boat. The wind stopped, and the disciples worshiped him. "You really are the Son of God," they exclaimed. So we're going to jump in and we're going to unpack. A lot of things are happening here. A lot of different ideas and thoughts are being shown. And so we're really going to unpack 3 main points. And we're going to talk about what this story is trying to convey to us, what we can take from it, some of the things that we can pull out. And so these 3 things are, 1, the taming of the chaos. 2, where fear reigns, faith is driven out. And 3, God's relentless pursuit of us. So we're going to unpack all these three things and look at what they all mean in this passage. But to do that adequately, we have to have an understanding of Jewish culture. And there's this one point in particular that I really want to convey and want to help you guys understand so that you can really appreciate this story for what it is. And so this thing is that Jewish culture took the idea that anytime you read about water, anytime you read about like the ocean and stuff, it represents chaos. So we here in New England, near the ocean, we understand what it means when we say like the ocean is chaotic. It can be terrifying with rip currents and waves and all this stuff. The ocean is not something to be taken lightly because of its tendency towards chaos. And so we see this in every Jewish writing as they talk about it. It goes back to the book of Genesis. When God creates the world, the way they choose to represent the chaos that it was is with an ocean, with the waters. And so God is speaking into it, this taming of chaos. He's talking about how he has this ability to tame chaos. And so when Jesus walks out on this water, he's not simply just walking out on the water because it's a cool thing he can do. He's walking out on it to show that he is able to master chaos. Chaos cannot reach him. It doesn't affect him. And so we pick up this second parallel. In Corinthians, Paul describes Christ as the second Adam. And why is the second Adam important? Well, if we go back to the Genesis story, there's this man who's placed in this garden, and he's perfect. He's the ideal. He's what mankind should aspire to be. He's what mankind is meant to be. He's good, and he's part of that taming process. He names all the creatures of the earth, which gives order to chaos. And so he's participating in this taming of chaos in the world. And because of the fall, because of their screw up, he lost that ideal form. He lost that idealness. Mankind was no longer the way it's meant to be. And we feel this, whether you believe in God or not, you feel this in the world. You feel it like this world isn't quite right. It doesn't quite work the way it's supposed to. There's a better way it could be. And so we see it. And so I think C.S. Lewis describes it as if he's like, we're living in a world that knows it's not the way it's supposed to be. We're feeling the echoes of that. And so in this moment, when Christ is walking on the water, we're seeing what man is supposed to be. He's supposed to be the tamer of the chaos. He's supposed to be the tamer of disorder. We have this ability that God has gifted to us. So God, when he created the world, used his word. We as humans have the ability to alter our world, to tame chaos through our words, through our language, through our actions. If the world is displeasing to me, I can alter it through my words to an extent. So for instance, if I threw a pen on the floor, I said, hey, can you pass me that pen? The pen can be picked up. We can communicate. And so the disciples and Peter are looking at Christ and they're seeing that's what mankind is supposed to be. That is the ideal. That's exactly who we're supposed to strive to be. That perfect tamer of chaos. That man who has no fear. And so Peter, in this moment, when he looks at Christ and sees it, he doesn't just see who Christ is the ideal, but he sees that he can strive towards that ideal as well. He sees in that moment that Christ isn't just the only ideal, but he's offering us the opportunity to follow, to strive towards that same destination. So Peter, with all of his courage and all of his strength, he begins to step foot confidently, realizing I too can be a tamer of the chaos of the world. And so I tried to, kind of get an understanding of what happens, because he starts out so good. He starts out treading on this water, being a tamer of the chaos. But then all of a sudden he starts to sink. And so the way I can kind of explain this is, how many of you could confidently say you could walk up these 4 stairs? all of you, hopefully, could pretty much say, I could walk up those stairs. I have confidence in my ability to step up those stairs, to take those 4 steps to get up here. But what if I were to take these stairs and suspend them 500 feet in the air? Suddenly, your confidence takes a hit. You could easily do it here, but as soon as you're looking out around you and there's 500 feet of nothingness, you're not as confident as you were before. So this something like this happened in my life. So I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like this is a safe place and we can love each other, so don't judge me when I say this. But I was filming a Star Wars fan film with my friends. And as I was doing this, I'm in my Jedi robes. I've got my lightsaber. And one of the things we decided would be really cool for me to do was we were in an abandoned building that had burnt down. And there were these I-beams all over the place, like these big I-beams. So they're like, about this wide, and they're just these metal beams. And we thought, it would be really cool if we fought on one of those 15 feet in the air. And to start it all out, Andrew jumps off of something and lands on an I-beam doing an awesome force jump. And so there's a lot of anxiety going on in me as this is happening. So I'm on the ground and I'm practicing that I can jump confidently onto these I-beams. And so I'm feeling very confident in myself. I can easily jump. I'm not missing. It's a good landing space. I can land on it and then, start my lightsaber battle. And finally, I get to the point where I have to climb up and jump from 20 feet down to the I-beam that's below me. And suddenly my confidence took a huge hit. Because something I can do and be confident in, suddenly I'm looking around me, and even though I know I can do it, it's a lot scarier. And so this is the experience that Peter is having. He starts that confident step, and he's like, look, I'm doing it. But then he begins to look around, and he sees these massive waves and this wind, and all of a sudden, he's not as confident as he was when he first stepped out of the boat. So he begins to sink. He loses that taming of the chaos ability to an extent. And so all of us can see this in our lives. We know there are areas that we're trying to aim for the ideal. We're fixing our eyes on that ideal, and we are trying to strive towards it. And the beauty of this passage is God and Christ are saying you can begin to achieve those things now. And you might say, well, you can't. God, you can't get to my doubt. But he's saying, fix your eyes on the ideal. Look at someone who doesn't doubt. Look at that and strive for that. You're like, you can't fix my anger issues. No. Look at the ideal and strive for that. You can't fix my financial worries. No. Look at the ideal and strive for that. And so it happens in every area of life. My anxiety, my fear, my anger, my depression. And God is saying, no. Fix your eyes on the ideal. Don't look at the ocean around you. Don't look at the waves, because the reality is life is hard and it can threaten to swallow you up. But I am here and I am telling you to keep striving for something bigger than yourself, and you can make it. And so Peter is dealing with all of this. All of this is simultaneously going on as he takes the confident steps and begins to sink. But then we see something else that begins to play out. And this is where fear reigns, faith is pushed out. Where fear reigns, faith is pushed out. In the moment when the fear begins to overcome him, his faith, his strength, his confidence are all gone. And so I began to think, when can I? What is an example of this that I've seen? And if you know me and my wife at all, if you follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, or anything like that, you'll know that we just recently got a brand new puppy, and she's the most adorable thing in the world. And she's about 3 months old now, and one of our favorite things to do with her now is to take her to the beach. Because, man, she loses her mind. if you ever want to feel happy just by watching something else be happy, you take my dog to the beach because she loves it. She likes to eat sand, which is another issue, but she loves it. She'll just run on the beach and just open her mouth and just take scoops. But she loves it. She thinks it's amazing. She loves all the sand, the beach, but there's one thing she doesn't quite love yet, and that's the ocean. And so, as we brought her there, we want our dog to, be a swimmer. We want her to, enjoy the water. We want her to swim in the ocean with us and things like that. And so we would try and take her to the ocean. So we would run with her and be like, run, and she'd chase us and she'd follow us. But then as soon as my feet would touch the water, she would stop and run the other way. She was not getting in that water no matter what. And so slowly, I would encourage my dog. I would, when my wife walked away, because my wife was like, don't scare her, don't make her go in, she's gonna freak out. I would slowly be like, hey, come on, and I'd run away from the water, and then I'd turn around and run back full speed, and I'd jump in, and she would like slowly, she'd put her paws in, and then she'd run out, and then she'd put her back paws in, and then she'd run out. And then pretty soon, she would have a little more confidence, and she would come into the water, and she would jump with me. And man, just when my dog and I are frolicking, which it's weird that a 23-year-old man is frolicking, but I was. We're in the water, and and I'm just so excited because I'm like, look, you're doing it, and I'm just so happy. And she, she'll jump around, but then that fear will overtake her. It'll come back, and she'll just bolt out of the water. And so I constantly am trying to get her like, come on, come run in, come play with me. And so like the joy I feel when my dog is able to overcome her fear and step in the ocean and jump with me and play with me is amazing. And so when I think of this story and I look at it, I can only imagine that moment when Peter steps over the edge of the boat, steps onto the water, and he and Jesus make eye contact. The joy that must have been exchanged between them. Like, there's Christ, like, you're doing it. You got it. Go. And Peter's like, and he's like freaking out. And so he's excited and he's ecstatic. He's like, I can't believe it. And just that joy as Christ and him are celebrating this moment where Christ is saying, man, I stepped into the water first so that you would follow. I stepped onto the water so that you would know there's nothing to be scared of. I can only imagine because, man, if I get excited because my dog goes in the ocean, what happens when your best friend walks on water? The joy, the excitement, the happiness you must feel is amazing. But where fear comes in, it drives out faith. It drives it aside. And Peter loses that joy. He loses it in that fear. And he steps it. And so many of us sometimes find ourselves in that situation in our lives. We're excited for a moment, but then something comes up, something hits us over the head, and all of a sudden it's fear. It's terror. So it can be so discomforting to have to take that step, be like, oh my gosh, I'm going. So for me, when I'm trapped in the car and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking there's a murderer behind me, suddenly I know that it's my brother. Like intellectually, it makes sense. Like, yeah, of course he's getting dropped off. It's still terrifying to open my door and walk through the darkness. And so Peter has to overcome this. He may know intellectually, he's looking at Christ, he's saying he's doing it, I can do it. He knows it in his mind, but it's a whole nother fear to take that step. And so for me, when I opened the door and I walked and I began to walk towards the other car, I remember that anxiety. It's like, yeah, it should be my brother, but what if it isn't? What if it's a crazy murderer? What if it's a clown? What if it's someone who wants me to public speak? This could go horribly. And the moment where I step and I look and it is my brother, it is the person I can trust, that's the moment when I'm walking in the ideal. I'm walking in the chaos taming. I'm walking in what I am supposed to. And so the final point we get to is God's relentless pursuit of us. So Christ didn't let a storm stop him. He didn't let the winds, he didn't let the waves stop him from getting where his friends needed him. And God will not allow you to get away that easily either. There's no storm, there's no chaos, there's no nothing that he won't be willing to tame, to walk on, to stop, to get to you. And so I looked for a story that would sum up what this means and what God is willing to do for us. And I found a very powerful story. And it's about a woman named Carrie Shaw. I don't know if she has a book, but she's had many interviews and articles written about her, and I would recommend you go look into her story because, man, it is powerful. So to give you a summary of who Carrie Shaw is, she's a lady who lives in the UK. And when she was about 17, she said she didn't have a lot of direction in her life, but she fell in love with a guy. And so they got married basically the day after she turned 17. And so they're married, and she's working like 14 hours a day, something ridiculous, and he's just living off of her income. And they end up having 2 kids named Makor and Daniela. And so it goes on this way for years, but then one day, when she comes home, she notices that they are gone. And it turns out her husband, Arf, had fled from the UK to his home country of Iraq with her children. And so she's freaking out, and finally she gets a phone call from him saying he's taken the children and he's keeping them, and the only way she'll ever see them again is if she sends him money. So Carrie says, I'll pay whatever price. And so she's sending every penny to go get her children back, to try and talk him into letting them come home to her, but he's not relenting. And so after several months of her paying and pestering him and trying to get him, she's gone to the authorities. The government said, we can't help you, we can't do anything, we can't extradite him from another country, there's nothing we can do to get him back, we can't help you, so no one can help her, so she's just trying and just talking to him. Finally, he says, all right, you can come visit them, and so she flies there and spends a lot of money to get there, and she's allowed to see them for 2 hours before they're taken away by their uncle. And so they send her back to England, and she's distraught, and she talks in her story about how she would wake up in the middle of the night kicking and clawing in terror because her children were not there. They weren't where they were supposed to be, and there was nothing she could do to get them back. And so she continues to try to reason with him, to try and talk with him. And finally he says, if you meet me on the border of Turkey, I'll let you have the kids. I'll let you take the kids back. So she goes to Turkey, and when she gets there, she's taken to this little hut where the kids are never shown to her, and they keep her locked there for 29 days. She's left to sleep on the concrete. And after 29 days, they finally let her go without having seen her kids even once. And so she's distraught. She doesn't know what to do. At this point, it's been 2 years since her kids were abducted from her. They were now 8 and 7. And so finally, she says, you know what, I've had enough. I'm done with this. I'm going to get my kids back. And so she spends a huge amount of money to buy herself some last-minute plane tickets and flies to Iraq. And as she gets there, she knows that her husband and his family sleep between 2 and 4 in the afternoon. Because in the desert, there's such heat, so everyone just takes a nap so that they can escape the heat for a little while. And so she gets a taxi to drive her to the house, and when she gets there, she sees that no one else is outside except her 2 kids are in the garden playing. And so Carrie says that she quietly it gets them to come to her. She encourages them. She gets their attention. And she said, even though it had been 2 years, they knew instantly who she was. And they ran to her. And she said, but she couldn't savor the moment because she had to get the kids in the taxi, and she drives to the U.S. Embassy, and the embassy says, we can't help you at all. We can't, if he comes for them, we can't stop him. And so she freaks out, so she goes and she spends $10,000 on plane tickets. I think it's 10,000 pounds, so that's actually like $17,000. On last-minute plane tickets just to get them out of there and fly them back to the UK. And she said she lived in this anxiety, this fear the whole time that before they got on the airplane, he was going to come. Before they made it to touchdown, they were going to get brought back, and then he was going to come. And then finally, she says, when they landed in the UK, she breathed a sigh of relief. Her kids didn't even speak English anymore after being gone for 2 years. They only spoke Kurdish. But she could finally savor the fact that they were home. They were where they were meant to be. See, it's with that passion that God pursues us. It's with that level of dedication that God comes after us, that he walks on water to find us, that he tames the chaos to find us. She spent 2 years searching for her kids. God has spent all of time searching for you. He said, I will pay any price, and he paid any price when he died so that you could be with him. You could come back to where you were meant to be, and maybe you don't even speak the language, but you know it's where you're supposed to be. If the band could come up as we wrap up. It can be terrifying to take those steps. But in that moment when Peter began to sink, God didn't let him sink. Christ grabbed him and lifted him up and pulled him out and said, I'm not going to let you go that easily. I'm not going to let you get away from me. I'm going to pay so much. I'm going to pay any price to make sure you get home. You get back into my arms. And you don't quite get it all yet. You don't quite understand it. But you know what? You know you're where you're supposed to be. And that might be you today. You say, you know what? I'm disillusioned with the church. I'm disillusioned with Christianity. I don't want anything to do with it. But I'm here to tell you, to let you know that God isn't finished with you. He's not disillusioned with you. He's grabbing you. He's saying, I'm pursuing you. I'm chasing you. I will never let you go. See, I remember when I was younger, when I was about, I can't remember how old I was, but my little brother was about 3 years old. And he was doing swimming lessons. And at 3 years old, it's supposed to be, your mom does the swimming lessons with you, helps you out, helps you deal with it. And my mom was like, I'm not about that life. Andrew, you're doing swimming lessons with him. And so once a week, every week, I would go and I'd do swimming lessons with my little brother. And so, we do swimming lessons. And one of the goals of this class was that the kid would jump off the diving board. And I mean, it wasn't a small diving board. It was about 6 feet in the air. And I remember my little brother would never do it. Like, they go out there with their little, with their noodle, and they just stand there, and they're like, nope. And they turn around and go the other way. And so my little brother would never do it. And so as the class went on, finally I started swimming out there, and I'd swim into the middle of the deep end, and I'd look up at him, and I'd say, jump, I'll catch you. And so there my little brother would go. He'd walk right up to the edge. He'd stand there. You could see the anxiety in that little 3-year-old brain as he He wrestled with that fear. Will he really catch me? Will he really be there? Will I really be okay? I've never leapt from a height this high, but can I do it? And he would squat down and get as close to the water as he could so that he didn't have to jump as far. And then he'd build up the courage, and finally he leapt. And I'd catch him. And man, that is what God is doing with you every day of your life. He's sitting there, he's saying, jump, I'll catch you. Step out of the boat, I'll help you walk on water. Ignore the wind, I'll quiet it. Don't worry about the waves, I'll settle them. Man, he's pursuing you relentlessly as you worry about taking that step, about making that leap, about taking that next journey in your faith, whatever it looks like. Today, in our reflection time, when the band plays for about a minute, you're going to find yourself in one of 3 categories. And each category is going to begin to think and pray and have a conversation with God, depending on where they are. And so the first category, you're going to say, you know what? I don't even know if I believe in God yet. I don't even know if God is real. I don't know if I'm about this church thing. But you know what? For some reason, I'm going to take a step and I'm going to see if the water is solid. And so when we have our reflection time about 1 minute, you're going to begin to pray, God, if you're real, I want to know. I want to begin to take that journey. I want to say, you know what? I want to trust you. If there's an ideal man that I can be, if there's an ideal man that you want me to be, if there's an ideal man that I can walk towards, you know what? I'm ready to start that journey. And I have confidence. I'm going to fix my eyes on you and nothing else. And for this minute, I'm going to say, God, tell me, help me, and show me. This is the path you've set for me. And you might find yourself in the second category. And if you're there, you say, you know what? I believed at one time, but I'm kind of like Peter right now, where I'm sinking. My faith is on rocky waters. There's doubt. And I've looked around, and the circumstances of my life seem too big. And so you're beginning to sink, and you're saying, Lord, help me. I need you to lift me up. So you're going to say, God, in this moment, in this reflection, tell me that it's going to be okay. Tell me that I'm going to make it through. Because it doesn't feel like I am. And I need you to help me tame the chaos that is everywhere in my life. And I want to fix my eyes on you, and I want to be able to walk on water again. And if you're in this third camp, you're going to say, man, I'm like Peter right now. I'm like dancing for joy on the top of the water. You're not excused yet. Your job is then to look at the people in the boat behind you and say, come on, get out. Let's go. We're doing this together. I'm not going to be the only one who fixes my eyes on him. I'm not going to be the only one who cares enough to begin to walk on water, to tame chaos, to see miracles happen. I'm not the only one. Come with me. Come with me, step into the water. Have courage. So you're going to pray and talk to God. You're going to say, God, who am I supposed to help take that next step in the journey? Who am I supposed to invite to Fall Fest? Who am I supposed to reach out to? And if you're standing there, you're saying, yeah, I want that, then you got who we are at Restoration Church, because we live and we have a saying of just one more. We'll do anything for just one more. We'll step out of the boat for just one more. We'll step onto the water for just one more. We'll fix our eyes on Christ for just one more. And so you're going to find yourself in one of these 3 categories, and you're going to begin to talk to God, and you're going to wrestle harder than you ever have in your life. You're going to say, God, I don't know if you're real, but I want you to be right now. I want to know if you're just a ghost, or if I don't have to be afraid, if I can fear not. You're going to say, God, I'm sinking, I'm drowning, I don't know how to come out of this, but I need you to lift me up. Or you're going to say, God, I'm on the top of the water, but I'm not pulling people with me to come on this journey. Give me a heart to do that. Give me a heart to reach people, to let people know that they don't have to be scared of the chaos underneath them, the wind around them, because right in front of them is the ideal, and we're all going on a journey to become as like him as we can. So if you'll bow your heads with me, God, we pray that you reveal yourself right now in our lives. No matter where we are at, which one of these 3 categories we're standing in, that you begin to show yourself to us, to let us know who you are, so that we can know that it's not a ghost on the water. It's a man saying, do not fear. Do not be afraid. Fear not. God, give us the strength to wrestle with these questions, to wrestle with our faith, to wrestle with who we are, and give us the courage to come forward with that. In your name we pray, amen. So we're going to go into a time of about 1 minute of reflection, begin to wrestle with these questions, and after service ends, if you said you were in this first category and that you know what, you want to take this journey, you want to begin to understand what it means to step out of the boat, there's going to be people up here who are going to be willing to talk about that with you, willing to pray for that with you, willing to begin to help you on that journey. If you're saying, I need help, I'm sinking, then you have the courage to come up and say, I'm sinking, I need help. Pray for me, help me. Or if you're in that third category and you're like, man, I got people I need to get out of the boat in my life, have the courage to pray for them. And begin to say, you know what, I'm going to help them get out and begin this journey together. So I'm going to let the band take it away. And God bless you.
I fix my eyes on you, the founder and the finisher of our faith. I fix my eyes on you, the solace in your suffering is my strength. I fix my eyes on you, the founder and the finisher of our faith. I fix my eyes on you, the solace in your suffering is my strength. You help me breathe. You're the only life I need. You die for me. You're the only life I need. You help me
We just put our hands together and thank Pastor Andrew for that word this morning. My name is Nate, and I'm the lead pastor here, and some of you are here for the first time. I got a chance to meet you before service started, but if I haven't, man, we're really glad that you're here. And if you're one of the people that Pastor Andrew was talking to, and you're making the decision to follow Jesus today, we'd love to know that you made that decision. And so that connection card that's in the envelope in the seat that you're sitting in, if you can fill that out with your information and then just check that box. I'm making a decision to follow Jesus. Check that box, and then you can hand it in the baskets that are about to come by. We're going to receive our offering. And excuse me. Also, if you're here for the first time, I know I've met some of you, but again, fill out that connection card, and you can put that in the buckets as they go by. We love to know that you're here, and if you put in your information, just to love to email you and just to welcome you to our church. We, those of us who attend Restoration Church, we give every week. It's part of what we do, and there's lots of reasons why we do it, but one of the main reasons or that we do it is because we want other people to experience Jesus like we have, and so that's a major motivator for us. And next week we're having Fall Fest here in Dover, so it's going to be following this service, and the only thing that costs money is the food truck. So we'll have a food truck or two here so you can buy lunch, but everything else, fried dough. We'll have a band here that's playing some interactive inflatable games and some carnival games and stuff for the kids. All that, everything else is free. And you'll get to see next week as the two services are there, and you're going to see a lot of people next week that you don't recognize. And what I want you to be aware of next week is how your giving is making an impact. Because for every single person that you don't recognize next week, there's going to be a lot of people like from first service that have been coming, that Jesus has changed their life. You just never met him before. But then also, as you see so many people here, you can just see that your giving is making an impact. That all of these people you don't recognize have the opportunity to hear about Jesus and to as we're serving, as we're interacting with people, to see what people are like who make a decision to follow Jesus. And so next week that's happening. I invite you all to stay and participate in that. It will be fun, a lot of fun. And then anyway, that's going on. So ushers, you guys can go forward. Thank you guys for serving. And the other thing happening is 2 Sundays from now on November 5th, we're launching in Plymouth, our Plymouth location. So on Wednesday night, November 1st, we're having our prayer night there in Plymouth. And I want to invite you to come. A lot of people are asking about carpooling. My minivan's full, but if you ask around, hey, are you going to the prayer night? Can I ride with you? You can park here, leave your car here, and travel up together. Or if you live closer, to north of here, you can meet anywhere and just ride together. Love for as many of you as possible to be there. And this is a big deal what's happening. We're gathering as one church to pray together and to believe God that he's going to use Restoration Church to make an impact in that area for to share the good news of Jesus with people. And we're going to together just make a significant difference here in Dover, there in Plymouth, and everywhere in between that God brings us to. It's just amazing what's happened already, and we haven't launched yet. While I was sitting in service, I got a text message. They had 99 people in Plymouth today, and we haven't started yet. When I visited there in July, there were 38 people besides my family there, and we just prayed that morning, God, maybe we could triple this in November. Maybe we could get to 120 people in November. Well, we're at 99 today. And God is getting ready to just reach people in that area. And you know what? Kind of the exciting thing is he's not done here yet. We haven't reached our capacity here in Dover yet. He's going to use you. He's going to use us to move New Hampshire from being the least church state in the United States to at least allowing people to see Jesus for who he is and to give them opportunity to reject that if they want to. But we know when you meet Jesus, You don't reject him. You're changed by him. So anyway, guys, why don't you stand to your feet? When we leave here in just a second, as everybody walks out the door, we invite you to come forward for prayer. Larry and Linda are here up front to pray with you, who believe God for a miracle for you. Well, I love you guys. Have a great day.